Welcome to Theater Corner. I'm your host, Michael Taylor. Theater Corner was created as an ongoing effort to create more diverse interest and involvement in the theater scene. This episode is brought to you by our generous sponsors, the Westgate Hotel. The Westgate is a one-of-a-kind luxury boutique hotel offering the ease, elegance, and pleasures of the world's finest. Our guest this episode is the endlessly talented Shakespearean actor, Rene Thornton. Welcome to Theater Corner, brother.
Hello, thank you.
You're very welcome to be here.
Thank you very much.
And you're in San Diego because you're performing at the Old Globe Theater. You're performing in Much Ado About Nothing.
I am indeed.
A Shakespearean play. So it's only proper that I welcome you here using one of the lines of the character you're playing, Leonardo. So, never came trouble to my show in the likeness of your grace, for trouble being gone, comfort should remain. But when you depart from me, sorrow abides and happiness takes its leave.
Well done.
There you go. Now you're properly welcome. Now you are properly welcome to the show. So you're coming to San Diego from performing at the American Shakespeare Center for 13 and a half years.
Yeah.
And why I say you're an endlessly talented Shakespearean actor. You performed in more than 137 roles while you were there at ASC. And that's done in 118 productions. Yeah. Bro, that's a lot of acting.
Yeah, it was a pretty amazing schedule. I do 9 to 11 plays a year.
Wow.
Usually have a big part in maybe 3 or 4 of those, middle-sized roles in a couple of those, and some smaller roles. But working 10 to 11 months out of the year.
Wow.
It's a very unique situation for an actor to find himself in, and one of the reasons why I stayed there for as long as I did, because work like that does not come along every day.
Right, I get that, yeah. And so having done so many Shakespearean plays, you've done the entire Folio, correct?
I have done all of the established Shakespeare's canon.
That's amazing. That's got to be pretty unique. I mean, you're a unicorn. I mean, how many actors could actually say that?
You know, it's funny. I get asked that a lot, and I wish we had a club that we all joined, or I got a badge or something like that. But I don't know that there's any way to know that. But I have to imagine that there are not a lot of actors who have done that. There are certainly not a lot of actors of color who have done that, and so. To have accomplished a dream that I had since I was 20 years old by the age of 41 was pretty special for me.
Yeah, and if there was a club of actors like that, you'd be the president. I'm certain of it. And so, having performed in so many Shakespearean plays, do you have a particular favorite role and a particular favorite play?
I have both of those.
Okay.
My favorite role that I got to play weirdly was Timon in Timon of Athens, which is a Shakespeare play that no one hardly ever does.
Right.
And it gets a pretty bad rap, but I actually, after having played the role, I think it's one of Shakespeare's best. And it's super weird to me that it doesn't get performed as much as it should. And my favorite Shakespeare play is The Winter's Tale. Which is also not a top 10 play, you know. People are just like, what about Hamlet? What about
right.
And those are good too, you know. But there's something that's so beautiful to me about Winter's Tale, and I feel it's so accessible to who we are as people. Jealousy is something that I think everyone can relate to. You know, maybe not the level of Shakespearean jealousy that it gets to, but I think everybody knows what it's like to feel like someone's coming after your love or your job or something that you have and someone else wants. I think we all know what that feels like. So I find it very accessible. And then the forgiveness that happens at the end of that play, I think, is extraordinary. And I think we could all stand to learn some lessons from that too.
When did you actually figure out in your mind that I want to be an actor? At what age did that come
I was
to mind?
about 7. I saw my friend Russell in a production of Oliver.
Okay.
And I just thought, well, that looks like fun. I want to do that. And my mom thought it was absurd because the first performance that I had ever actually did, I played one of the 3 kings in a nativity show. And I wouldn't go on stage. I stood off stage crying and screaming, "Don't make me do it!" And they had to push me on stage. So my mother used to love to tell that story because she couldn't believe I became an actor after all of that to do. But I saw this friend in the show, and I was like, "That looks like a good time." And so a couple of years later, the opportunity came up to be in a school show. I was in the 4th grade. And I played the White Rabbit in the trial of Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, wow.
And that was the bug. That was the bug for me. I just had never had fun like that. I had never had an experience like that to be able to connect not only with the other actors on the stage, but with the audience as well, as we all work together to create something. I mean, there's nothing in the world like it. There's nothing in the world like it.
One of my questions I like to ask is why theater? I mean, you just touched on it a little bit for yourself. Is there?
I think it's one of the most extraordinary things that people can do is to get a group of people together from all different walks of life, all different education levels and experiences, and all agree that we're going to come together and create something. Right. Night after night after night. I mean, I get goosebumps talking about it. Like, why? That's extraordinary. And especially at a time in the world when there's so many things dividing us, theater brings us together.
Very good point. You're going to be performing in Much Ado About Nothing from August 12th to September 16th at the beautiful Old Globe Theater.
Beautiful indeed. Yeah. Yeah.
But you performed in Tempest, which just closed very recently, and you performed with Kate Burton.
I did.
What was that experience?
Yeah, no kidding. How lucky was I? I mean, it was the first time I'd ever gotten an opportunity to work with someone who was considered, theater royalty in the family line that she comes from. But more than that, an extraordinary woman in her own right. And I was terrified of meeting her at first because the parts that I most know her from, Grey's Anatomy and Scandal, she plays very sort of severe women. And so I was like, oh God, she couldn't have been sweeter and more generous of spirit and nicer. And from the very first day when I was awkwardly crying in her face, she was nothing but warm and welcoming and friendly for the entire process. And I feel very fortunate to have been able to spend that time with her.
Wow, that is so wonderful.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about your experience with the Old Globe too, because this is like kind of on acting bucket list, I would imagine.
Absolutely. No, I first heard of the Old Globe when I was 19 years old. And I thought, I sure would love to work there someday. And here I am. So it was a dream come true for me this year to get this job at the Old Globe. Getting to perform outdoors again is... it's amazing, especially a play like The Tempest,
right.
which wants to be outside, and to be able to feel the elements while you're doing that is extraordinary.
You received a B.F.A. in theater at the University of Utah, M.F.A. in theater, professional theater training program at the University of Delaware. Yes. Is there a particular trainer or teacher that you've encountered along the way that really stands out?
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today without my teachers. They helped form me into the actor that I am today, or at least gave me the building blocks for me to go out in the world and become the actor that I am today. And Ken Washington was the first of those. Ken Washington, may he rest in peace, he just passed away a couple of years ago. He ran the acting program that I went to at the University of Utah. And then I was in the last class he worked with there, and then he went to the Guthrie Theater, and that's where he spent the rest of his career. He's had an incredible reach throughout the theater community all across America. So many actors know who he is and have worked with him. And more personally, he was also the very first gay black man that I had ever met. And when I was sort of a young kid coming out of Utah, still trying to figure out who I was in the world, to meet a man like that, who also then ran this theater program, was life-changing for me. And he was my first mentor. How
important would you say diversity on the stage, even behind the scenes, the staff, how important you would say that is in theater?
It's essential. It's essential. I mean, I think, as I was talking earlier about bringing community together to create something, the more diverse that community is, the more interesting the thing is that you're going to create.
Right.
You're just going to be having more viewpoints. You're going to be telling a more multifaceted story than you would be if you're just telling them from a single point of view.
You're getting a chance to talk with Barry Edelstein, the artistic director at the Old Globe, who is also kind of quite an expert, I'd say, in Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Have you had much exposure to him so far?
I haven't, actually. We've only met a couple of times, and unfortunately he's not directing either of the shows that I'm in, so I hope we get to work together. Now that I'm going to be a San Diego resident, hopefully we'll get to be able to spend more time together.
Very good. Yeah. San Diego residents. You're coming from Virginia, I think.
Yeah.
So how is San Diego mixing in with yourself?
One of the things I love about San Diego is that it's a big city that doesn't feel like one. And so from living in a small town for as long as I have, I'm from New York City originally, so I'm a city kid, theoretically. But I definitely turned into a country mouse living in Virginia. And so San Diego fits that feeling for me more, I just feel super comfortable here from the very first time I arrived, which isn't always my experience when I get to cities. But San Diego, just from day one, I was like, I could easily call this place home. And the fact that it's beautiful here 95% of the time also helps.
Even the cloudy days are sunny.
Today was a bit gray, and I was like, it's still gorgeous. Yeah.
You're in driving distance to LA.
Yes.
You're a skilled actor. So I know folks are wanting to know, what are your plans or ideas or about perhaps scooting up the street and doing a little film?
I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's not the thing I'm hunting for. I always sort of describe it like nobody ever asks the foot doctor, are you interested in being an eye doctor as well? To me, they're separate jobs with separate skill sets. Being on stage with a live audience, having to project, diction, connection is a different set of skills than acting for a camera that's 4 inches away from your face.
Right.
I just think they require, and there are a handful of extraordinary actors who are great at both, but then I think there are a bunch of actors that are better at one or the other.
If the opportunity fell into your acting lap, you would certainly be open for.
Absolutely, I'd give it a try, give it more of a try, and things change, and maybe I could have an amazing experience.
All right. So actors like yourself, who's been doing this for a minute, I'd like to ask a question because we have up and coming actors that watch this show. If you would have advice for up and coming actors.
Know what you're passionate about. For me, my career has really been driven by what I'm passionate about, and that sustains me through the times when it's not going the way that you want it to go. It is not an easy business, which people will tell you all the time. Though it used to, when I was in school, people would always show up and they'd say, if you could do anything else, go do it, which always used to upset me because I thought, how limiting of you as a human being, but that's the only thing you can do? No, I could do other things, but this is the thing I want to do. And this is the thing I love to do. And just know what you want. So many actors get distracted by offers of fortune and fame and celebrity. And if you're into that, then do that. Then organize your life accordingly. But if that's not what you're into, then don't let it distract you. Don't let it distract you.
And so what can viewers experience when they come to see Much Ado About Nothing?
It's going to be a beautiful, gorgeous production. Our director, Kathleen Marshall, 3-time Tony Award winning choreographer, 9 nominations, very established, very skilled. Much Ado is a show that has a couple dances in it, and those are going. We've already seen one of them, and it's good. People are going to be show-stopping numbers. And Much Ado is such a delightful play, even when it gets dark and heavy, that I think people are going to be excited by what a good time they're going to have, and they're going to laugh, and they're going to experience a lot of joy, and maybe a couple tears along the way.
That's what you go to theater for. It's a beautiful thing that way. And so you're performing again, Much Ado About Nothing, from August 12th to September 16th at the Old Globe Theater in sunny San Diego.
Yes.
Brother, I want to thank you so much for taking out time. I know you got to get to rehearsal. You're going to rehearsal
straight away
from
to
here.
rehearsal, yes.
But I really appreciate you, and I got incredible respect for you as an actor. I mean, you're so well accomplished, and you do what you do, and you do it well, and you represent us well as well.
Well, thank you very much.
And so I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to opening night and seeing you doing your thing as Leonardo.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, viewers, for tuning in to another episode of Theater Corner, and we'll see you next time.